Welcome back, travelers, to the exciting conclusion of Midnight Hunt. Now, we last left Arlinn after she had just shifted into her werewolf form. So this is really this is the final bit. And we have a flashback to when Arlinn was a child. And her father would tell her, because her father used to make the Abyssinian symbols, and would tell her to be careful in the woods. Well, you may recall that she killed up somebody when she was at the church. And then she planeswalked. She would not go back to Innistrad because of how she felt about it. When she eventually did, she was able to shift back into her human form, and she went home. Only to find out that where her father and family once lived was now a burnt down husk, because the forge that they had burned down the house in an accident. So she never actually got to see her family again after that happened. So, back in the present, we have Tovolar. And Tovolar is very happy because she just became a werewolf. She's finally showing like her animalistic side, and he tells her again, come home. And from the last episode, last time we did this whole thing with Tovolar, it was a lot of repetition of him basically telling her, you belong with us, fighting, you belong with us. And that's what we get here. And if you guys read this yourself, you'll see there's a lot more to it. There's like a lot of really cool descriptions for the actual like fighting itself and how it's all going. Like the fact that there's a point where a chunk of wood is buried in Arlinn's shoulder. Stuff like that. And as they're fighting, her own wolves pin her down. Oof. And it's like, well, this is bad. And she's kind of thinking back to all the different things and remember how we talked about Warren, Dennick being the spirit kid?
Yes.
And how his father, or illegitimate father, I suppose, was a head bishop. Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out in the past, he had recommended Arlinn to become an archmage. Yeah. So basically, she was like, as far as that whole stuff goes, she was really, really good. But now she's here, and there's like, you're just covered in blood, covered in wood. And she pulls out a hunk of wood from her body, and she's thinking like, this isn't home. This isn't like where I want to be. This isn't right. And he says, join the hunt. You don't have to fight. And this is a really cool line from him. The church hates this part of you, but I don't. The pack doesn't. And when that all happens, she notices something. Patience isn't with her, with the wolves that are like attacking her. They have her pinned. And so she's like, and she can feel the soft fur of Patience on her hand, but she could smell her nearby, so she reaches out for her, even though she's pinned. And Tovolar tells her, please, we want you with us. You belong with us. And she looks at him, right? She looks Tovolar dead in the eye, and she says, I'm home. She says, the woods are home. The wolves are home. The church is home. All of it is home. And he picks her up and he hugs her. And she can feel Tovolar's embrace, and she says, this is home too. Because this is what she knew when she first changed. It was Tovolar. Mm-hmm. And she remembered the kindness he had shown her when she was just a pup. But she says the ferocity and the mercilessness is also part of who Tovolar is. It's become a part of him. He had grown into someone who attacks innocence, and she had grown away from him. But he hasn't grown away from her. And she's dizzy and she's bleeding. And she drives a claw into his sternum. And he's holding on to her, and like the realization dawns on him. And he lurches. And she says, Innistrad is my home, Tovolar. And as long as I breathe, I am going to protect it. And he tries to dig his claws into her shoulder. And her hand is still inside his chest. And she says, call off the attack. And she can see like the life kind of flickering in his eyes. And he staggers away. And he says, "You lied." Like he's legitimately, but like he feels betrayed. "You lied."
She Loki'd him.
And she says, "Call it off." And like he just closes his eyes, his heart broken, and he says, "Fine." And he looks at her and he howls. And he leaves, and the wolves, they go with him. And he doesn't ask Arlinn to come with them. And the wolves slowly retreat. So that was, when reading it, it's so much cooler than me just describing it the way I did. But Tovalar isn't killed in this scenario. Arlinn lets him live. She also has the wolves like help him up so that he doesn't show the weakness. He still has a gaping hole in his chest, but he's not dead. Because if he shows weakness, and other wolves will pounce on him and he'll lose his rank, basically. So, which I expect will probably happen anyways, but still.
Ulrich comes back and takes the spot.
And then Arlinn gets to, she's wounded, but she gets to the Celestis. And when she's there, everyone is like doing this thing. There's effigies burning everywhere, and everyone's excited, right? Mm-hmm. And Catilda basically approaches Arlinn. And it's crazy because this whole ritual is taking place, and because of the way everything's set up, Teferi's created like a time bubble around them so that they have more time to do the ritual before night comes. Because if they don't do it in time, then everything goes terrible. And thanks to Ren, Teferi has a bit better control over time magic, right?
So Teferi's really just supporting all these fights.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what Teferi's always kind of been. He is a support person. He's not really someone that fights and kills things. He can hold his own in a fight, but there's other heavy hitters that can do it better.
It's like, all I can do is put that guy over there. You can burn his face off.
Here's what's really cool. Catilda speaks to her. "Child of blood and fang, you stand on the line of dawn, where night and day meet. You will lend us your strength." And what's funny is that the thing Arlinn focuses on is the fact she says "child of blood and fang," and thinks to herself that I have not been a child for a long time. And she says, "Will you spill your blood for the day? Will your fangs protect those who live in fear?" And she says, "Yes, I will." She doesn't quite know what it means. And then she tells her to anoint the sun gold lock. So basically, Arlinn touches the wound on her shoulder and smears the blood inside the bowl. And it's like really warm inside the bowl. So she does it, she smears it in there. And then she takes one of the herbs and she bites into it. And basically she like puts her teeth into it, right? Fang. She puts that in the bowl as well. Because her actual, like the werewolf part of it was required for the Celestis to work. Which makes sense if you think about it, because the werewolf is the most natural of the creatures of Innistrad. Zombies are cobbled together corpses. Geists are restless spirits. Vampires are literally just cursed humans. The werewolf is a transformed creature. It's a spirit of the wild. It's a natural monster, as opposed to those other ones, as opposed to supernatural or completely unnatural in general. And then Catilda says the coven offers root and soul. And so it takes out this root and puts it into the bowl with everything else, and then they're going to do it, right? And the soul part, Catilda's soul actually kind of starts to come out of her body, like an aura comes off of her. And this is it. This is the ritual. It's finally happening. And everybody's like, "Oh, it's happening. Oh my gosh, it's happening." And suddenly, there's something in the sky. And Arlinn smells it. And Kaya looks up and she senses it. And it's a smell of death. And it says it happens quicker than a human eye could follow, but conveniently just fast enough for Arlinn. A streak of red and gold like lightning through the sky. Olivia Voldrin. Yep. She snatched the Moonsilver's key in one hand, and she has Catilda in the other, with her claws in her chest. And Catilda's spirit is already separate from her body, so that's already a problem. And Olivia's basically says, seems we're at an impasse, because even though she had like gone for the key, Arlinn was able to snatch it from her. She dove for it as well. She says, looks like we're at an impasse. I've got your witch and you've got my key. And Arnold's like, neither of these are yours. And she goes, on the contrary, this key is very much mine. I need it terribly, you see. What I don't need is a shriveled old witch. And so there's just basically this thing that goes back and forth where they had to make the trade to kill, to like either Catilda's going to die or they have to give her the key and try and figure something else out. And so Arlinn throws the key to the witch, to Olivia. Olivia drops the witch, and basically Olivia just beat them. In one fell swoop, she disrupted the ritual and allowed night to completely take over, which is bad. What's also crazy is that Olivia had to go through the time bubble in order to get there, meaning that she had already, like, she at the last second had already been on her way. And if they hadn't like had the time thing in general, they wouldn't even gotten that close. Because she would have just ruined it.
Olivia's that strong.
And so they can hear Catilda's bones cracking as she crashes against Arlinn. And then Arlinn crashes and breaks the altar behind them. And the world stops spinning. The vampire's gone. And there's a distant speck of black against the already dark sky. The key gone with her. Celeste is silent. Night on Innistrad. It'll be night from here to eternity. Basically just wraps up a lot of things. Tovalar's defeated. Arlinn stakes her claim. She's comfortable with who she is. And Catilda got wrecked.
So that's how we go from Midnight Hunt to Crimson Vow.
Yes, and there's one story in between both of those that will be the last part of the Midnight Hunt series before we get into Crimson Vow. It's going to happen. It's finally happening.
Finally happening.
And I mean, at this point, maybe there's Kamigawa spoilers. But we'll know. Well, not this point, but by the time that Crimson Vow's final bits are done. But yeah, cool.
Who knows? Thank you guys so much for watching. Go ahead and tune in next time. We're finally finishing Innistrad. And by that, I mean going to the first part of the last part of Innistrad. Bye, guys.